Welcome to the Artist Advisory Hotline, the podcast for artists who want valuable guidance and honest answers on how to grow their careers and develop their new project from leading art world experts and artists. Here's your host and founder of the Artist Advisory, Marina Granger. Tune in as she gets you the answers you deserve.
Hello, hotties. I'm your hotline host, Marina Granger. Today, I have an incredible interview for you with Alex, who's the founder of Salon 21. Now, Salon 21 is a space that is so incredible. You'll hear me talk about it on the pod in the interview with Alex, but basically, it's a gorgeous loft space in Soho that is a gallery and a community space. They have incredible exhibitions and wonderful events as well. And actually, they have one coming up very soon for Halloween on October 30th. It is ticketed, and I'm sure you can get more info on their website. But it's really fun. They're going to have a tarot card reader, which is incredible, and you get to come dressed as your favorite muse. So I really invite you to take a look on their website. And in the show notes, you have the links to all of the Salon 21 things. Alex is so incredible. I'm so delighted to have her in the podcast. And I was like super honored because she's an incredible interior designer as well, interior decorator, I guess. And she has had her home featured on Homeworthy. And it's just like so cool to have this New York City, like cool girl, Alex Bass on. So tune in and please don't forget to leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or give us a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the interview. Hello, Alex. So great to have you here on the hotline. Alex Bass is the founder of Salon 21 here in New York City, which is an incredible space. And I just saw a stunning solo exhibition there for Brianna Lance, who's an incredible artist. I just had to have Alex on the podcast. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And it was so fun to see you at Brianna's opening the other night.
Yeah. So, would you tell us a little bit about where this idea for Salon 21 came to you from? And, like a little bit of the history of the space,
Of
because it's
course.
not a conventional gallery space.
Exactly. It is not. So, in the name itself, Salon 21, the connotation there is that we are an art salon of the 21st century. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with the history of what the word salon means, it dates back to like the 1600s in Italy and France. And it just means living room in different languages, sal or sala. And it started as people, just patrons and matrons of the arts as well, to use the non-patriarchal term, who would just host their friends, cultural figures in their living room space to talk about contemporary issues, arts and culture of the time. And that would just take place in their home. And I feel like the home is obviously an environment where we entertain, we feel more at ease. And I believe that art, my personal philosophy is that art should be lived with and enjoyed. And so I wanted to create a space that celebrates that and showcases artwork on walls like it would be in someone's home. So that is why Salon 21 is designed to be an unconventional gallery space. If you haven't been here, we have, the walls painted, we have furniture. So it really just feels like you're walking into your cool friend's apartment who happens to have rotating exhibitions on the wall that are for sale, and really breaks that mold of the kind of white cube gallery. And it kind of, going back a little bit, the history or the reason why I wanted to start it was because I studied art history in school and was really drawn to those time periods when I felt like artists were convening in person and meeting collectors that way. And I just felt like with New York's like such rich, rich cultural an art scene that we're all, so lucky, those of us who live here, to experience, that was really lacking. Like, we can all walk around Chelsea and go to gallery openings and go to museums and do all the amazing things the city offers, but I just felt like there wasn't a place for artists to really meet with collectors and to have those personal connections and conversations and be inspired by one another. So really, the space that we've created here is one that first and foremost focuses on building a new community in New York.
That is so magical to hear, but also I keep thinking about your location too. Now, what's really striking when you walk into Salon 21 is, first of all, it's on the second floor, which feels like you're walking into a home, and it's in Soho, which is a very historical art neighborhood. I feel like all of these art history greats, I mean, I don't know, history per se, but like in the 70s, Soho was the center of the art
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Literally, everybody was there. And so when you walk into Salon 21, you feel like you're in this incredible Soho loft. You are in an incredible Soho loft. And I was just wondering if the location itself has anything to do with your choice, because you could have been anywhere in the city, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do pragmatically with what was on the, market at the time when we were looking for a space to open Salon 21 in. But then once we found this space, I was so dead set on it because Soho did feel like it really embodied the concept more than any other neighborhood. Especially because, as you mentioned, in the 70s and 80s, there was such a rich art scene here. And if you walk around Soho now, you can still visit like the Judd Foundation, Soho Studio, and there are places like that that are preserved, but I think Soho is best known for its super commercial galleries and retail spaces on the street level. And I like being able to bring back a level of authenticity to Soho as a neighborhood and really like celebrating and championing the arts culture that used to be here. I mean, I had a guy come to one of our openings and he swore that like it used to be his gallery, or not his gallery, his studio. He was like, it was either this or a building on Mercer, but like they all feel very similar because they're these old cast iron buildings, which used to be factories. And then give a little history on the neighborhood. Obviously, manufacturing moved out of the area. And then in the mid 1900s, in the 60s and 70s, artists were using these amazing spaces, these cast iron building lofts, as their live work spaces. And that is few and far between these days with real estate prices. So it's really fun to be in a space that has those authentic bones to it. And I'm happy to be bringing something like that back to an area where that really doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it is just so, it's like a gem, literally.
Thank you. I want it to feel like you said, it's on the second floor, and that's intentional because we don't want that kind of gallery or like retail connotation. So I want to feel like you're walking into a space you don't know what to expect, and then it just opens up, and you're like, oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
something different and
It's
unique.
just so warm and inviting. And I gotta say, I, did like a little bit of a Google and I saw your feature on Homeworthy, which was, it's one of my
Oh, cool.
favorite
Thank you.
kind of like video blogs to watch. And it was like so cool to see your apartment, how you live with art. And at that, like when I was watching the video, I learned that you were also really interested in interior decoration, right? Like interior design. And I want to know if that still plays a role in how you approach everything.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I don't have a traditional background in interior design. I think just being a creative person, as I'm sure you know, you kind of wear many hats and people ask for your opinion on certain things. And so I kind of fell into this role of um, doing interior design. I mean, I have done large residential and commercial projects, which has been really exciting, and I hope to do a lot more of that. But I just naturally, as someone who like loves art and the history of it, started finding that interest in like the history of design and studying that, and sometimes loved going and looking at design showrooms even more than I like going into some contemporary art galleries. So it's so interwoven, and the space itself, as we've been talking about, is set up like an apartment. So when I when we moved into this space and we opened, I really had to think about furnishing it like an apartment would be furnished, obviously a little bit differently because it's really an entertaining space. But design plays a massive role. And also for the artists too, they are coming in and they're not curating a show in a super open white walled gallery space, which I think is even more of a challenge to wrap your head around how to place your artwork in that and configure something that feels exciting. But when they come in here, and honestly, just before we got on this podcast, I was working with an artist for a show in November and we were figuring out how to place her work. She's like, this is so fun to figure out, like, okay, this painting can go on this nook and cranny or over here. And it's really like how you would think about placing art in your home. And so when collectors come in and look at the artwork, I'm trying to help them wear that lens where they can say, okay, actually, I need a piece for this wall, or, and just have them think about it in a more practical sense as well. Like, oh, I can actually see this in my home versus when I feel like you're walking around, all of the galleries and you're seeing just art against a stark white wall. You're not, it's kind of existing in this liminal space and you're not envisioning like, oh, I could see that above my sofa or my bed or something. So I think it actually helps a lot of people who maybe don't think with design in like the forefront of their mind, like me or you would, like, oh, okay, I can actually, this is digestible for me. So I feel like it's actually more accessible in that way.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I also think about that moment when, like, I imagine walking into someone's space, and how many times have we all done that where we walk into someone's house and we're like, wow, we love that so much. We kind of like want that painting or we're interested in whatever they have there. And that kind of creates that feeling as well. When you walk into your space, you're almost like coveting what is hanging there because you're like,
Yeah.
hey, that's a great idea. I want that too.
I never even
uh,
thought about it like that. That is true. It really is like you're walking into a friend's apartment and just like, gawking over the way they did something and getting ideas for your next project. So that is,
yeah,
yeah.
you're like, where'd you get that? So, so
Salon
yeah, it's
21.
yeah, there you go. So I wanted to ask you, speaking of wearing many hats, like right now, you are wearing a curator hat. If you're watching this on video, you can see. So I wanted to ask, how do you discover the artists that you work with? And like as a curator, I'm sure you just kind of like know a lot of people, but also you know where to look. But yeah, like how are some ways that you discover artists?
I would say that like the most asked question, like how do you come across these super talented artists? And I have to like stop and think about it for a second because a lot of it happens naturally, but I want to think back to sort of why that is the case now. And this plays into why I wanted to open Salon 21 in the first place. So when I was in undergrad in the city, I connected with a lot of people, friends who were in art schools in the city. And so I already was kind of mixing socially with really interesting creative people. And was always thinking like, how do I get so and so a platform to show and sell their work? Like this person's so talented, they should be in this gallery in Chelsea, and they're not, right? And they're stuck on this traditional path of having finished art school, having to get representation or whatever they see for their future career as an artist. And so I was just kind of really naturally forming these connections with people. And then when I decided I really wanted to open a space, I reached out and I was what are you doing right now? I'd love to come see your studio. And artists are always really open. I mean, this is not a golden rule, but I would say more so than not, artists will let you into their studio and, you can come take a look, and especially if you want to buy a piece. But it was really just exciting to kind of go around the city, visit a lot of friends of mine whose studios I hadn't been to, and check out what they were working on and kind of see if this was something people were interested in and if this would work. And I think a lot of them were like really down for the idea of showing art in like an unconventional space. I feel like there's a lot of people trying to disrupt the art world right now, and that plays into it a little bit. But it just felt like, you know, artists who are living and working in the same space, they're living with the art on their walls, and so they're already thinking about it in like a home context. And so um anyway, they're really open to kind of coming to Salon 21 and checking it out. And so that just really happens organically. But I'll also find artists honestly through Instagram. I could come across, I mean, that's like when social media is a positive force for creativity and inspiration. Like I can come across an artist page and love their work and just reach out. But it has to be the right fit. And an artist could be super talented and I could really want to work with them, but they're on a different trajectory and exhibiting in Salon 21 space doesn't work for them, which is completely fine because this is something different that we're doing. So it just has to be the right match also between myself and the artist, and having trust in one another that we're going to put together this great show in this very unconventional environment. So I don't know if I answered your question perfectly, but it happens through all different means and mediums, and at the openings too, artists invite their friends and then I meet them. So it's really, again, just about being a part of an arts community.
That is so, that's so the right, like the right answer. No, there's no such thing. But it
A plus,
totally,
yes.
yeah, A plus, great. I love to hear it. Well, basically it's like networking in person, like it's
Yeah.
your kind of community, and also on socials. But I wanted to ask if there's a certain like direction that you're interested in going with Salon 21 and the types of artists that you show. What are
Mhm.
you currently like interested in when you're looking? Or maybe there is something that your like tried and true collectors are really interested in.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we've only been doing this for a year and we celebrated that 1 year marker last week. So definitely still in the learning
Happy
process of what I
birthday.
feel like. Thank
Happy
you. Happy birthday,
birthday
Salon
to
21.
yeah, to this Virgo gallery.
Oh my God, oh my God, our
Yeah.
gallery is a zodiac sign. I never thought about that. That's
It's
hysterical.
so important. You should read its horoscope. I do that for my business all the time.
Never thought about that. I do it for myself, but okay, after this, I'm doing a little deep dive. Um,
So, all right. So your business is a Virgo. Very important. So yeah, like I get this idea of like you are basically networking in person and also using the internet like social media to sort discover artists, which is really exciting. But what kind of like direction are you headed in now that you kind of have a grasp on like what maybe your collectors are interested in or what you're more interested in? Is there anything in particular that you're looking at or for? Like, what direction do you feel like you're headed curatorially? And like, I don't know if that's too much of a question.
no, I mean, it's something important to be thinking about. And I I think I'm always thinking about that with every show that we do. Um, I am particularly drawn to artists who work with a bit of like an art historical reference, if that makes sense. So just from my previous studies. So I feel like this show, for example, taps into a lot of surrealism from the 1920s, and our show coming up next references even in the work itself historical paintings and themes, and I just love those narratives. Um, as I said, we're still in like our infancy as a 1 year old in this business. And so I still am getting the pulse on what our audience is really drawn to. But I also think it's a matter of me as, the founder of Salon 21 being able to communicate why said artist is so exciting and why, said exhibition is really important. And that could be figurative, it could be abstract, it could be something in between. And so, what I've been trying to do at least is have enough variation in what we show month to month so that I can gauge what I feel like people are drawn more towards. But at the end of the day, it kind of just comes down to my personal taste and what I like,
Yeah.
and also the artists I like to work with. Um, I think for where Salon 21 is headed, I think I would love to be even more hands-on working with artists, helping them produce the work for the exhibitions that are going to go up. So maybe we built in some sort of residency or studio component to Salon 21, which would be really cool. Don't quote me on that. We'll see if it ends up happening, but throwing it out there, manifesting, throwing it out there into the universe. But I just really love working with artists so much. And so to be a part as much as I can without stifling their creativity, to be a part of that at least like exhibition planning process is really fun for me.
Mm, I love that. And I love to hear kind of how everything feels so aligned in the infancy of your business. Infancy, I say kind of lightly to just mimic what you said, but it's a one-year-old business, and this is almost like the most exciting part of a business because the world is literally your oyster. Also, when you say that, I feel a little bit better because I'm like, "Oh, I thought," I was like, "Where have I been living under a rock? How did I not know about the space?" And
No, you're
I'm
all good. I mean, I even feel like in a year, this should be in a place that it's not. We all get this sort of syndrome of, and it's good to think beyond what we're currently doing, but it's also important to remember how much can be done in a period of time, and like how important word of mouth is, and that kind of organic marketing that does not happen overnight. So it's just like celebrating those
I
small things too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And speaking of organic marketing, everything you do feels so like perfect and aligned
Yeah,
to
I feel like I'm
me.
really winging it a lot of the time, but that is great feedback.
I think it's because you have like such a clear vision. Like you know what you want and you're a true tastemaker. So that is really interesting to see. And I wanted to see if you had any sort of advice to people, anyone listening who also maybe has a vision and wants to get started, but maybe they don't quite know exactly where to begin. Like maybe they're an artist or an aspiring curator or an established professional and they have something in mind. Like, what advice would you give to them if they're listening?
It's a great point. I think, obviously you mentioned different people in the art world, so an artist or, maybe someone like me who wants to open up more of a space, um, or someone on a more traditional art world path. But I think the number one thing is talking to people. Even just having this conversation with you, right, is giving me ideas. And so, from an artist's point of view, I think and you can take everything with a grain of salt as you should, but like getting as many eyes on your work as you can and opinions. And that'll inspire you and lead you into a bunch of different directions. And also making those connections and networking and seeing who, maybe they'll recommend you should reach out to me at Salon 21. And then we end up putting on an exhibition together. Um, you know, I get this question a lot from people who are interested in maybe starting their own business. How did you get started? I think just having that really solid vision, and I don't think, don't get so married to it because it's going to change the second you open the doors to your business, just based on you can't, there's variables that you can't predict, obviously. And maybe I had such a clear idea of we were going to be doing X number of events a week, like, whatever I had put in my business plan per se, right? That changes, but the mission and like the ethos of the business hasn't. So I think just staying true to that initial mission and like but allowing room to grow and taking that feedback and applying it if it feels accurate, and not being worried that changing things here and there is going to disrupt that initial idea, if that makes sense. So I'd say staying true to yourself, whether you're the artist or an entrepreneur, and artists are entrepreneurs, and these are all kind of the same
Yeah.
thing. But just, yeah, like I'm constantly reaching out to people for advice, what to do next, what do they think of this, what event did they think we did last month was the most successful. And I don't take everyone's opinion to heart, but talking to people is, I think, just how to summarize everything I just kind of rambled and said. But yeah.
Well, it's so helpful and it's so helpful to hear like, hey, get as many opinions as you can, but the most important thing is that you know that they're opinions, right?
Yeah.
And an opinion is not a fact. And an opinion is just there to help you, guide you, inform you on how you can maybe do the thing you want to do even better, right?
Yes, you
Because you're
summarized that.
what was that? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Summarized that so well.
Oh, thanks. I'm a good listener, huh? No, I'm kidding. I'm like patting myself on the back, which I should, which we all should, right? Like it's so important. But thank you. And I wanted to ask you another question about art collecting. Like generally, and you have such an incredible collection, just like again, going back to the features of your home and all of that. I wanted to ask when it comes to collecting art, maybe there is maybe two questions. Maybe this is like a two-parter. So for anyone who's like starting to build their collection and they just need to know that they're headed down the right path, if you have any advice for them. And yeah, so let's start with that.
That. So I always tell people buy what you like. I don't think of art as an investment in a sense that, yes, I'm investing my money in something, but it's because I love it. It's not just because I think that this is a good store of value. And it might be, but that's not why I'm buying the piece of art. So when you're building a collection, which I feel like this is such a like hot topic right now, right? Like how do you start? You've already started. We all collect things. So look on your walls, look in your drawers. What are things you keep with you? Scraps of paper, I don't know, things you write in your journal, a print maybe you picked up from a museum, things you even save on Instagram, like the virtual collections that we make is like a whole interesting topic. Um, and then you'll start to get a sense of what you like. And I tell people to do this with, design clients who are asking me to come in and, maybe help with their living room. They have no place to start. Like they have no idea where to start, for example. And I'm like, yes, you do. You obviously have a point of view. You just haven't realized it yet. Everyone does. So just kind of start looking at all the things you're saving and collecting, and not that everything is to fit into that aesthetic, um, but kind of knowing that and knowing what you like will, I think, make you less scared of like making the wrong like purchase or like impulsively buying something. But again, like I really am someone that's like, if I see it and I like it, I buy it, and obviously within reason. But especially with art, like I don't really I will think about a piece and go back and, make an educated opinion and decision on it, especially if it's over a certain amount of, financially. But I don't know, just kind of go for what you like, and that in itself will be your collection. I don't know how to make that sound more practical, but
No,
there's
that
always
is
who can kind of then help you guide you and refine. And there's always that one wall that maybe you don't know what to put on. And like there are ways to kind of help and work around that. But don't knock yourself like, I have no point of view. I have no taste. I have no idea how to start a collection. Like that's not true. We all do. And you might want to aspire to something else, but that's okay. We all have aspirations.
oh, I love that. And it's so true. We all have taste, right? Like we decide what we're wearing in the morning or whatever it is, or in the afternoon, depending on your schedule,
Yeah.
right? But I wanted to ask that second part of the question is, do you feel like it's important for artists to have an art collection? I think we often think of artists as people who make
Oh
and
yeah.
don't collect, but from what I know, and I've worked with so many artists pretty intimately, they're interested in so many things and they tend to have collections of one sort or the other. So, yeah,
The
what is
best
your view on that?
all of the artists I know have the best collections, and that goes beyond fine art, like just everything they collect. Because they're collecting also for inspiration for their pieces. So whether it's a book or it's something they picked up on their travels, like they are building these curiosity cabinets, for lack of a better term, that also helps you understand their work. So I love going to an artist studio and like diving into that collection. But I've had artists come here and buy each other's work. Like this happens a lot. And they want to look at it. They want to get inspired by it. They want to hang it in their home. They understand that art should be lived with. So I love when an artist is a client and, not just that they're not just selling the work that they're
Yeah.
buying. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of those things that I worked in galleries for ages in New York, and it's one of those things that I thought was the biggest misconception. I was always, from the very get-go when I started out and I'd be like working on the front desk, they were like, well, if it's an artist, and we don't show them, you don't give them attention. And I'm like, well, but that makes no sense because they love they're gonna probably they're artists are buyers too, right?
Yeah, anyone and everyone can be a buyer, right? And like,
Or
yeah, that's
collector.
a
We're gonna call.
right, collector. But that's just such a, yeah, interesting
Yeah.
opinion gallery owner to have. So I'm glad you thought differently.
Yeah. And so you mentioned also like when you walk into artist studios and you were talking about doing studio visits, and is there anything that pops out at you when you walk into an artist studio space that you notice right away? What do you look for? And I feel
Yeah.
like this is such a timely question to ask you because you are in this process of doing many studio visits, I imagine. So it's fresh in your mind.
I guess it's different if the artist is like working from home or if they have a separate studio. I think it's most interesting to visit an artist studio when it's also their home. And I just love to see everything. Like I'm that friend who will come to your apartment and like I get so mad when people do it to me and I have to like recognize that, but like I kind of touch everything and look at everything and look at your books and like I just want to me everything you collect like we're talking about like says something about you. So I don't even necessarily look at the art on the walls at first. I'm just like, oh, what color carpet did they pick? What is like in the corner over here? So I'm just like a big looker and I get very like overwhelmed in a good way and just like engrossed. I'm like, I'm walking into their world. Like this is the place they create and like live and sleep and dream and breathe and invite their friends to and all of that. So it's just so fun. I don't necessarily look for anything in particular, but I also think it's cool to see when an artist is creating in their home. Um, and obviously for space reasons and for other reasons, they're gonna hang that maybe a piece they just did up on their walls. And it's like, okay, they're living with their work then for a period of time before it goes onto exhibition, whether it's at Salon 21 or somewhere else. And so they're living with it. They're constantly walking around it. That maybe they realize they don't like a part of it and are changing it versus an artist who is maybe working out of their studio and they're not obsessing and looking at it all the time. I mean, that obviously happens too, and artists spend countless hours and nights in their studios that aren't also their bedroom. But I don't know, it's cool. And I was just thinking about that earlier. Like, I personally need that separation between work and home, and it's very interesting when an artist is just like living amongst it constantly. And I feel like that kind of does make a true artist. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of artists I talk to are so like timid about having home studios. They're like, "Oh, but like how do I even invite someone? It's in my home. It's not like cool." But it's so cool to hear you say how you appreciate that so much. So, thank you for saying that.
Letting me to come into their place, because I know it's obviously your home is personal to begin with, but on top of that, it's a place that they're working and creating. And so, just being really thankful and appreciative and like taking that care too.
Yeah. Oh, love that. Well, Alex, I love all of this. I want to ask you just a few personal questions since we're talking about personal things now. I wanted to ask you, what's your sign? And if you know your big three, your sun, moon, rising.
I think I do. I know the main one's the sun, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm an Aries, and I've known that since I was a kid. And I was always like, I'm such an Aries. All of the stereotypes are true. Um, and then my moon, I think, is Aquarius or Pisces, one of the water signs. And then my rising is Scorpio, and I have a lot of Scorpios in my family, so I find that interesting. And you can totally correct me on this because I'm not as well versed in all of this as you, and I have a lot of other friends as well. But your rising is kind of what people perceive you as. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And then your moon, it like kind of rules your emotions. Although I don't know if that's true for an Aries.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
My husband is an Aries and I love Aries. You guys are the best. I'm also an Aries moon, which means my emotions are ruled by Aries. So yikes.
I mean, Aries, I feel like sometimes people just think we're very intense, but I I I think there's just so many good things that I resonate with about being in Aries. Just like needing that sense
Yeah.
of control, organization, taking charge, leadership. And it was good and bad to all of that. But
Also, I gotta say, I think I haven't, I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but I believe you are the third gallerist who is an Aries on this
oh,
podcast.
cool. Yes. Yeah, a lot of Aries are entrepreneurs, but in business somehow, on the go, constantly schlepping
Yeah.
around the city, I feel.
Yeah.
But that's all.
Okay. So, Alex, I also want to know what is like your favorite thing to do on your day off, if a day off even exists when you're an
Yeah,
entrepreneur.
yeah, it's okay. I mean, likewise, like I don't feel like I have day offs necessarily unless I make them a day off. I mean, I'm constantly checking my email and everything, and sometimes I just want to leave my phone at home. But I do really love to like go to museums and galleries on my day off, as like cliche as that might sound. I really don't do it that often because I just feel like so tired at the end of a work day, not necessarily dealing with art, but just in general. And kind of the last thing I feel like doing is popping over to a gallery opening and socializing more or whatever it may be. So I'll kind of start a list on my phone of shows that I know I want to check out that month and then try to kind of check those off when I have a free moment. I also love going to the movies, like in person. I was so sad during COVID when that wasn't feasible. Um, my boyfriend and I are a member of Film Forum, and they play foreign movies all the time. They'll play old movies, like they'll do a whole week dedicated to a certain director, and they also have like fun events and panels and things. So we'll try to do that a lot. And I also love going to trivia. I'm such a nerd. Sorry. Like I like to
Okay.
learn in my spare time and consume.
Ah, I love that so
I
much.
don't know.
I
I also like to do
love
nothing like we all do, but
Oh, wait, you also love to do nothing like we all do? Is that what you said?
yeah, it was like I
Yeah.
also like I sound crazy with my kind of perfect answer of I like to trot around the city and go see gallery shows and whatnot, but I am also a couch potato like we all are.
Oh, yeah, as which is amazing. I also have to say I love trivia, but I'm so bad at it for some reason. I always think I know, but I know only after I hear the answer and I'm like, "Yeah, duh." So I'm not a good person to have on your team, but I also want to ask, is there a movie that you're like excited to see that's coming out soon?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Because
Uh,
I have one.
you go first.
Oh, and now I'm like, I have to Google it. I don't know. Well, whatever. I won't Google it, but I don't know if it already came out or is coming out, but I want to see Substance or The Substance with Demi Moore. Have you heard
I've heard
about this? Oh my gosh. It sounds, have you ever seen Gia with Angelina Jolie? Oh my, it was like a movie about this like supermodel who was like gonna like break out and be like this great supermodel, but then she just had a whoopsie um with drugs and
a lot.
alcohol, I think. Should I be a movie critic? So anyway, these
I mean,
technical terms.
yeah, I think actually Friday night I'm going to see some film at Film Forum. I can't remember the name of it. It might be like Lancelot in French with my
Oh,
boyfriend, which is like the film.
cute.
And then I feel like over Thanksgiving and Christmas is when we start getting the good movies. There's also the film festival out in the Hamptons coming up in a few weeks, which
Oh
is exciting. I can't wait to
yeah.
go to that. And they're going to be premiering the movie, and I'm totally forgetting what the title is, but it's about the creation of SNL, and it's like the first night of them putting it on. So it's supposed to be really
Wow. I'm like wondering, is that going to be where is the film festival in the Hamptons? Is it in like Sag Harbor or?
all over. So it's like any space out there that's either already a movie theater or I guess as a projector.
Mm,
Bounce around and you kind of just try to get tickets to whatever you can. It's like a crazy lottery system. Um,
wow.
tickets, I'm so excited. You guys have to come. So,
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, that sounds like so much fun. And yeah, Substance with Demi Moore. Just
right.
gotta tell you, gotta plug it. I was just like listening to her talk about it on a podcast, and it's a movie about like a f- basically it feels like a biopic. It's about a kind of like movie star who is starting to age and the kind of repercussions of that. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like obsessed. I can't wait to see it.
They're just having another moment right now. Love
She
them.
really is. She's incredible. Ah, but anyway, Alex, it was so fun to have you on the pod. And I can't wait to see you again soon at one of your incredible events at Salon 21.
So much. I loved answering all of your questions.
Thank you. And where can we keep in touch with you if we're like into Salon 21 or learn more about it?
Yeah. So we really try to post everything on Instagram. So our Instagram is salon.21, and we will recap events there, post about new events, new exhibition openings, and then on our website as well. We have all of that, and you can sign up for upcoming events too. And yeah, we already have all of our exhibition opening dates listed for the fall, so they're up there. We hope to see you guys there. Reach out to us. We have some exciting panels coming up as well, and a fun holiday event. So lots to come.
Yay. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. Support your community by sharing this podcast, leaving a review, and follow The Artist Advisory on Instagram at @the_artist_advisory. And visit us online at www.theartistadvisory.com.